Okay, so I did this a little presentation before a high school group and just explained to them a little bit about basement apartments or ADUs. In Utah, we have tons of basement apartments and not too many other ADUs. But anyway, I showed my first house here, and I just talked about how it's been a good business and how this house is, doing a basement apartment you're renting to people, and it is a business. So this house is, I think the landscaping looks pretty good. The trees and the grass looks fairly good. The bark that's in that flower bed. So nothing fancy, and it could look better, but being a business, I explained how you need to do a good job. Okay. Then I went back to here, and the coach of the high school class that I was doing this for, the coach was teaching business, and anyway, he was a baseball coach. So I have here the dumb question of the day: does it take skill to win? And I am a bus driver, and I took his baseball teams, just his sophomore teams, in fact. And I'm amazed at how well they can throw, how fast they can pitch, and how well they can hit those pitches. Amazed at how good those players are, even just as 10th graders. And so I tried to explain that owning basement apartments, building them, it does take some skill. If you're going to own a basement apartment and rent an ADU, you're going up against apartment complex owners that, obviously there's a lifetime of skill, a lot of knowledge base in that, and everybody's looking for the best tenants. And so if you're going to do a basement apartment, it does take some skill to find good tenants and to build it out well, just like a baseball team. Okay. Next concept I talked about with the high school students. This is a study, and it's kind of shocking, that was done a few years ago. So it's the net worth of the average homeowner, the median homeowner, versus the net worth of the median renter. And as you can see here, the median renter, it has the money going out the chimney, okay? And the average homeowner, their net worth is $300,000. Average renter or median renter is only $8,000. So I explained to them, you really want to get into a house. It really is the engine that drives wealth and drives so many good things in our society. Lately in Utah, it used to be easy to get into a house. Now it's quite difficult with how much houses cost. Just the barrier to entry is high. So a basement apartment is one way that these kids could do it. And I said, well, these are just high school kids. They're ways away from that, but it is something to think about down the road. Anyway, this disparity in net worth, 40 times the net worth, 300,000 versus 8,000. It's just, that's median, and maybe that statistic might lie just a little bit, but there is something to that homeowners do well. The next thing I explained is that, I love basement apartments. Been doing it for like 25 years since I bought my first one. And just the ADUs equals accessory dwelling units. So my YouTube channel here is ADU owner, and ADU is the the legal name for a basement apartment, or apartment that's built in your backyard or above a garage. Anything you rent on your property is called an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, to a city. And then here, it's a customer service business. Okay. And like any business, I go down and I'll explain that more, but you have to please the customer to get a good customer, and that's a good renter is a good customer, and that's what anyone's after. Okay. Now I go to my first house, my first experience. It looks pretty good here. I had some fairly good renters. I had some renters that weren't so great there. I ran into a friend that went bad. And you can make mistakes. I hear so many new people. That's why I started this channel, because it's not for the experienced people who've been doing it 10 years and are really good at it. I started the channel because I hear so many new people that do it and mess it up. They get a bad renter, they get a bad experience. They don't have their place quite nice enough. You know, they rent it after they've put so much money into it and don't find anybody that's good. They rent to somebody that's a little shaky, thinking maybe we'll help them out, they'll help us out, and then it goes bad. I've heard that story again and again. So anyway, I just wanted to, you know, kind of beat that into the high school students that it's a business. You got to make things look good, okay? And again, on that theme, when you go to a restaurant, do you like a dirty table, disorganized restaurant? Do you like a restaurant that's empty that nobody seems to be shopping at? Do you like when you go to a restaurant or you buy something when you go to Costco? Do you like to find a good deal? And quality at a good price, I think, is what everybody is looking for. You know, they're willing to pay for quality, and so basement apartments or ADUs is, you know, it's a customer service business, and you got to work hard at it. Okay. Next, I just wanted to define some types of ADUs. Again, out in Utah, we have tons of basement apartments here. In this picture, I just pulled it off the internet, but you don't see any windows here. You know, light in basement apartments is important, but that's the type of ADU that I'm most familiar with. But light's important, and they don't have to be dark. They can have some pretty good windows. Walkout basements where the back of the house is above the ground is a good way to go. But anyway, basement apartments, that's what that is, okay? Now I talked about another type, backyard cottage. Again, just pulled this off the internet. This is a backyard cottage, so the house would be back here somewhere, and then there's some, you know, some nice landscaping and whatnot. And this would probably be for maybe somebody you know, because it looks like it has a connection from the house to the apartment, and this might be grandma living back here or something. But anyway, so backyard cottage, and this is, you know, it's a pretty cool looking shed roof here with the lighting and the natural woods. Good architecture there. The next type is a bump out, which is just basically that they've built onto the main house and built a section that they can do a basement apartment. So, or not a basement apartment, an ADU, above ground ADU. So this one I explained, this is pretty good landscaping, pretty good architecture, you know, and like a basement apartment I can do for $25,000 sometimes, depending on what you need to put in it. But this one, you know, this could be $250, you know, depending on where they built it, the materials, and but it's good quality. Depending on the cost of construction in the market that they built this, it could be a lot of money here. So this is a lot, could be 5, 7, 10 times as much as a basement apartment cost to build. So anyway, that's a consideration, the different types. This is a garage apartment, the next type. I don't know if this is the best illustration because, well, where's the access to the garage? I guess it's in the back, so, because usually you'd have some sort of street back here, or, you know, maybe they cut out the driveway and put in some better landscaping to make it not feel like just a garage with a driveway. That could be also. So anyway, this is a garage apartment. You can envision a garage in here, and they've built a small apartment in it. I'm actually building one of those right now, and it's kind of exciting. The one we're doing right now is the city still wants 18 feet of garage so you can park 2 cars in there. I think we're doing 18 and a half, so that's tight. And we're doing a tight basement apartment there because there's about 15, 16 feet behind the garage that the city requires. So, so we still have to maintain enough for parking, but we're building an apartment in a very deep garage. So anyway, that's that type. This is another type. This is an ADU or above a garage, so where they've built that. They have a lot of these in downtown Salt Lake, for instance. Okay, so those are the types. So the next time, I don't know how well I explain this, but this is an inverted V, okay? And the idea of this is you want to put your work at the start, getting your apartment ready, taking great pictures, advertising it in the right places, screening tenants, all that work at the start, okay? And then here at the top of the V is where you interview and you hopefully pick a great tenant, okay? And then if you do pick a great tenant, then all your work goes down because you got great tenant. They're respectful to you. They don't make a lot of noise if that's what you want. They can be good friends, but you don't necessarily look for a friend. You got to keep it professional, but they can end up being quite friendly and good friends with you. They pay on time. They don't get weird pets. They just all those things. So if you don't put the work in and you don't get a good tenant, now keep in mind, and I made that point that as a basement apartment owner, you're new, or ADU owner, and you're going up against all those professional tenants, okay, that have a lifetime of experience in owning and managing. So they're gonna try to pick off all the best tenants, okay? That's the name of the game. So anyway, you put the work in, and then it's easy. And I've found that it's kind of a skill to get great tenants, and that you got to build a nice apartment, a nice product, customer service business, and then you advertise it, take some great pictures, whatever. Okay, so but if you don't put the work in, you get a bad tenant. Okay, they bring an animal in or the animal's not good, or they are not respectful, or they make a terrible mess of your yard and house, or yada yada yada. Okay, and some of the books that I've read in getting a good tenant, this is just an aside, if it's an apartment complex, they do hundreds of units. It's not their whole life, okay? If it's your home and you've put all this time and energy into buying this home, developing an ADU, then it is kind of a big part of your life, your tenant, okay? So you should put in that extra time. And the books I've read, they actually will go to the prospective tenant's residence. I've never really done this, and check it out. They'll look on Facebook at the prospective tenant and see if they're the kind of person they want. They'll do all these extra things. They'll check credit. So because a lot of people that build an ADU, they seem to have a soft heart, and they'll rent to somebody, but they don't get the best renter, okay? So anyway, you have so much invested, you need a great renter, and I'll talk more about that, okay? Next, see, this is in bold. Your job, get a good tenant, okay? That's your number one, number two, number three job, and I try to explain that to the high school students, okay? Well-built apartment. Ronnie, I don't have the microphone, so don't make too much noise, okay? So well-built apartment, a good location, okay? I'd rather have an apartment near jobs, near college, near things that are going on, and not way out on the fringes, okay? Good location. Privacy, I did a video on this, and tenants value privacy, okay? We sectioned out our house and our driveway so the tenants can have kind of their own space. Good amenities, they want the washer dryer, the dishwasher, the nice new looking stove, the nice new looking stacked washer dryer, okay? They want modern things. And then you got to advertise well. You got to check them out with screening them properly. We'll talk about that. I talked about that with the high school students. You got to take good pictures, okay? This is one time when I've seen the same apartment, terrible pictures, and then I went and interviewed, and I took my cameraman that I know, and we did great pictures, okay? And the same apartment looked terrible, and you really had to use your imagination, or it looked super good, So I didn't get to this with them, but I had an excellent tenant, perfect references, but she was a young girl. She only stayed a year, okay? So she was a great tenant, but I want somebody that's going to stay longer, okay? So the next time I found this older lady, didn't have as good of references, maybe the traditional references. She was on housing, which scares people off sometimes, scares landlords off sometimes, and she's but I want somebody that's going to be there a long time. And this lady will probably be there till she dies if I treat her well, okay? So anyway, the next one I said is, if you can't find a good tenant, maybe your advertising's not good, maybe your location's not very good, and it's better off to leave it empty for a while, another month or even two, and after you've put $20,000-$30,000 into a basement apartment or whatever, it's hard to leave it empty because you probably spent most of your money getting it ready, and you're like, we got to get this rented, but you're better off leaving it empty than to get a bad tenant, okay? So I said, if you're in this situation, go drive Uber instead of renting it. Borrow some more money from your mom, whatever it takes, but you got to have a good tenant, okay? And I've learned that over the years. I've had several bad tenants, and it's a hard lesson. And I've seen that people learn that lesson that are new landlords again and again, okay? It's hard, and I hate to see that, so you got to get a good tenant. Anyway, and then if you're not finding a good tenant, you got to look hard, ask realtors, ask people, why isn't my business as an ADU succeeding, okay? So if you're in a tougher market, you got to start asking that, and the market's getting a little tougher all over the country, okay? Again, okay, then I talked to their coach. Their coach was Coach Henry. He was the baseball coach. I showed you that picture of his baseball team at the beginning. But anyway, I said, would he make a good coach? That was wrong. I put tenant qualifications. Would Coach Henry make a good tenant, is what it should say. Okay, and I asked him his credit score. And he said, excellent, 850, 800 plus. So anyway, that's obviously that's fantastic credit score. And you can have somebody with a lower credit score that has good tenant references, that works hard, but they've just been dumb with money, okay? So that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but that's part of the screening, okay? Then I asked about landlord references. I said, Coach Henry, where have you lived? And he's been a homeowner for 20, 30 years or whatever he said. So is that a good reference? And that does happen. Somebody that comes from a home owning situation, and then they have to rent for some period of time or whatever. That does happen. So would owning a home 20 or 30 years be a good reference? Obviously, yes. You check that out, and if that's true and they keep their home nice, that'd be a fantastic reference. You can look at their home on Google Maps and see how they keep it, Anyway, work references. He said, I've been a coach and a teacher for something like 20 years, okay? 25 years. So is that a good work references? Obviously that is. It's important that people are, young people aren't going to, obviously 20 years, but it's important that people are going places. They're working responsible places. And, you need to look at the whole picture. And I said, kind of look at the smell test. As you look through credit score, landlord references, work references, personal references, kind of you get an idea. Is this person going places? If this person really screwed me over as a landlord, would that matter to them? Or would they just walk away, ha ha ha, it doesn't matter because they're already screwed over 10 other people in their life, So you're kind of looking it over. Would they screw me over? Would that matter to them? Are they going places in their life? Anyway, and then Facebook, Google, home visit. So I said, if I went to your house, Coach, would it look nice? I can't remember if I asked him that, but I bet it would, If I looked him on Facebook or Google, would I see anything that would raise eyebrows, And so anyway, money to move in. Say I'm renting it for $1,250. Do you have $2,500, Coach? And he said, yeah, I got, not a problem. I believe him, Family size. Is the family size appropriate for what you're looking for, As a basement apartment owner, you can turn somebody away for any reason. You shouldn't be discriminatory in your advertising, and you shouldn't be discriminatory for bad reasons. But, say they have a dog or whatever, and or too many kids, too many people just for the size, you can turn them away for that. That's your right, So anyway, family size. Pets is another one. Now, a lot of good tenants have pets. A lot of good people have pets. Is it a sign that people are good, that they have a pet that they love and take good care of? Probably so. Now, if they have a pet that they don't take good care of and they just picked up this pet and it's brand new and it's all over the place and they don't really care about the dog, that's a bad sign, you know. Anyway, smoking, that's up to you, you know, smoking, okay. Okay, then I told a story of this. We built this apartment in Chihuahua, Utah. It was a small town at the time. We really tried on this. As you can see, it's light, picked good paint colors, good carpet, good tile. The kitchen's not awesome, but anyway, we really tried hard to make this a good apartment. But we had really, I think, some privacy issues in the backyard. The way they entered, see, up these stairs here, you could enter and go into our house, or you could come down to the ADU, the basement ADU, okay? So it wasn't a great situation in a lot of ways. We also didn't keep the lawn up that well. We have lots of kids, and we're not great at doing lawn care. And so it had some big negatives, and we had a very hard time finding good tenants here. And so I told them that story. I'll show you a picture later on about that. Another thing in customer service is good soundproofing. You know, everybody knows what it's like to be in an apartment. You can hear the people above you, below you, to the side, loud parties. And that's really important. And I've learned that more lately as I've started to build more basement apartments, how important soundproofing is, okay? My dad's really noisy. Sometimes he gets in arguments with people and it's kind of embarrassing. He really needs better soundproofing in his basement apartment. My dad has a basement apartment, okay? Kind of the last thing I showed him is that I showed him this guy that wrote this Outlaws, In-Laws, and Granny Flats. And I said, be a master at what you do. This here, you know, in my mind, is great architecture. This is one that's made to relate, you know, if you're in the main house and you have a relative in the apartment. Anyway, this is just good landscaping, okay? And just, you know, and I said, I've never gotten to this level that this guy does in this book. He's a master at what he does, and if you can get to that level, or you can approach it, you don't have to get to that level, but make that you don't have to make it your goal, but keep in mind the importance of this. And if you could get to this level, all the better, that you're doing great landscaping and beautiful architecture that you see here. Okay, and then what's on the next page? Oh, just more about this Outlaws, In-Laws, and Granny Flats. I explained the title. In-laws is in-law apartment, you know, people that you're related to. Outlaws is actually apartments that are illegal. They're not permitted, and there are so many of those in Utah where I live. And I've heard nationally there's just the great majority of ADUs are actually not permitted there, so they're outlaws. And then Granny Flats is kind of a more English term for ADUs, so just another term for that. My advice is, as I said, a lot of them are outlaws. They're not permitted. Be permitted if you can. Do things the right way. I've been in cities where they don't allow basement apartments at all, and I just felt like that was ridiculous because of the housing need or whatever. But yeah, so be permitted if you can was my advice. But you might have the feeling it's my house, and why should the government tell me what to do, you know? They're not the one paying the mortgage. They're not the one that have to deal with the neighbors. So anyways, you might have that feeling. But anyway, I just wanted to introduce this book to them also. And then this is the backyard of the house in Chihuahua, Utah, where we really had a hard time renting. The yard was not kept up. This is probably better than it was kept up most of the time. We had toys and things back here. The entrances was not private. Again, you'd walk past all our stuff here and maybe even some of our car here and go in the entrance. It wasn't private at all. We should have put an entrance over on this side, so then the house would have had an apartment side, and we could have made that more private, and then the owner side would have been on this side, and we would have owned that side, okay? and that would have been totally private. We could have done whatever we wanted in the backyard. So we just really screwed it up on this one as far as that goes. And then it was a bad market, you know. Tooele was not a lot of young people living there at that time, traditional renters anyway. So okay, these are some things that if you're going to buy a house, look to buy a house that make a good starter ADU. One, like my first house already has an ADU. That's probably the best, you know. And that was a good experience for me for my first ADU. It already had one. Adequate parking. You know, you probably don't want to buy in a cul-de-sac if you can help it. I have seen houses in cul-de-sacs that have 2 driveways where they actually work pretty well. So it can work, but you want to look for adequate parking. A house on a corner has tons of parking, different situations. If you're doing a basement apartment, it already has a basement entrance. Basement is probably your big ticket item, or the entrance is one of your big ticket items. It's really expensive to dig those and put them in. Can be legal. Obviously, a city that that hates basement apartments, it doesn't allow them, wouldn't be a great choice. Oh, and this one, a small apartment with a bigger main house. Like right now, my house is like 3,700 square feet, and the basement apartment's only 700 square feet. So that's a great situation because we still have a big house that meets our needs, and then the basement apartment is tons of people with the demographics, young couples, older people living alone, maybe somebody that has a couple kids that's divorced. Tons of people want a small apartment. And so that it's a good situation. A lot of people want a small apartment. There's a big market for that. And then, you know, a finished basement, or one thing that ADU guy, you can find him on YouTube, he recommends a master suite. So a master bedroom that already has a bathroom access, and then you can work some kind of kitchenette in there. That makes a great situation if you want to do it easily, okay? So let's see. The point of this slide is just kind of do what you can with what you have. Improve one thing at a time. And I talked about how, you know, we got a cute table. I was single, living with roommates here, so it was a good table. We got some nice hardwood flooring in here. A good color on a good wall paint color. Some of this artwork that was pretty nice. So we didn't improve the hard things, which was the kitchen and the bathroom in this, but we did what we could. And it's a good idea every time you rent your apartment to improve something. That's a good way to go. Well, I'm really losing my voice. Again, this is redundant. That's a really cute shed for my kids, but where's the privacy? For crying out loud, here's where the people are supposed to be. And, you know, I guess if you rent it to people with little kids, they might love that, but whatever. If this was, yeah, I guess if you didn't use this shed and you made it a playhouse, some might love that. And then I showed this picture to the students, and I said, you know, this is a recent effort, and it looks pretty good. I think it's tasteful, and as far as nice cabinets, but actually I got these cabinets out of a really fancy house that was being torn down in a couple cities away. It was a big lot, and they were tearing down a pretty nice house and building a mansion. And so these are actually out of the laundry room, and it made a perfect basement apartment kitchen. I got this for $400, this whole ensemble. And then I just had to take out one cabinet and put in a dishwasher, and then it had the laundry room had this cupboard that I had to kind of rebuild a lot and put some work into. But everything was there for $400. So again, in any business, they want to sell a nice product for a lower price. And that's what I did here by buying used. This appliance is used. This appliance is used. This faucet I got off of eBay. And it's like half price for a Moen excellent faucet. And, you know, I wouldn't always recommend this, but the guy was short on cash, my friend. And so we bought this washer and dryer for like $400 versus. So you can just do great things with what you have. If you I'm buying used, it's something that takes kind of some practice to find the right things, and you can buy used junk, and you don't want to do that. But if you get an eye for that and that's fun for you, then it's a good way to save money but still provide a good product. Okay, now this is getting a little bit long, but why these pictures? Again, I talked about good pictures. This picture is a terrible dark picture, this bright window and dark everywhere. This picture is not a bad picture because it shows that it has, it's fairly bright, but it shows people want a washer and dryer. So I should never have included this one. Got better lighting, but anyway. These are two other projects that I've done that I just wanted to show real quick. And then this I showed like two brothers or an older couple with a daughter. You know, in this day and age in Utah, if you don't have a really great job, it's hard to buy a single family home. You can't really do it. So this is a situation where you could, you know, two brothers could buy a house. That's how I bought my first house. My sister and I bought it together. Parents, you could buy a nicer house for your parents and put a basement apartment in for yourself. Go in. I just met a guy that went 60-40 with his daughter because his daughter actually made over $100,000 and couldn't qualify for much of a house at all because Utah's just gotten so expensive and the interest rates have gotten so high. So anyway, getting together, and that's not a bad way to go. If you can find somebody you can trust, somebody responsible to go in together on a home. So that's just about it, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation I did to the high school students. And I really believe in basement apartments, or ADUs, as you can tell. And I hope I built this channel because I want people to have success, and I hope you've picked up a few things that will help you to have success, not make mistakes that I made along the way. So I appreciate your interest, and this has been ADU owner, and that's all I got for today.